and Karen felt like she was going to give birth. So her husband Frank quickly drove her to the hospital. Karen was in labor for 48 hours when she finally gave birth. But when the doctor saw what she gave birth to, he immediately turned pale. And before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The baby was carried away, and Karen was told they needed to run some tests to make sure the baby was fine. After hours, the doctor returned. I'm so sorry. His whole face has gone red and he can barely look Karen or her husband Frank in the eye. And I have never seen him like this before. What is going on? The doctor told the parents that they needed to run some more tests. Karen couldn't contain herself anymore. She had to see her child. But the doctor said it might be too dangerous for the child. Once he had to get answers, Frank got a little angry as well. He got up and told the doctor nobody would stop him from seeing his child. Frank walked over to the research wing of the hospital. The doctor did not expect this, but he called security to make sure Frank was stopped. Frank did not struggle because he knew it could only end badly. He was eventually escorted out of the hospital, but Karen had to stay. Karen was escorted to another room. She asked where Frank was, but he was sent home. Karen had to stay for additional questioning. They needed to get more information to determine what was happening with the child. Karen started crying when she was pressured. A lot happened before and during the pregnancy. She did not want to tell anyone about it. Did she just put her child's life in danger due to her own dangerous lifestyle? Karen almost couldn't speak. It was so difficult for her to tell what she had done. And she had a wild lifestyle before meeting Frank. She drank and partied a lot. Frank managed to get her to slow down, but it could have been too late. During the pregnancy, she often had bad stomach cramps that she could not explain. But the doctor assured her every time that all was good. Karen thought this was normal for pregnancy. Did the doctor overlook something? When the nurse looked at past tests that other doctors ran, she saw something weird. A lot of information was redacted. It was almost like they were trying to cover something up. Karen still had not realized what truly was going on. The nurse had called a doctor back in. She asked him about the test results. However, the doctor who ran the tests was fired 2 weeks ago. Was this connected? The doctor kept reassuring Karen that the baby was still fine, but they had to figure out if it could survive without being taken care of. Karen decides she will not struggle anymore, and she had a feeling it was better for her and her baby to work with the doctor. Karen also had something else in mind for that night that she did not tell anyone else about. Karen was obviously not locked into her room during the night, so she decided she would get up out of bed and look for her baby. When the nurse did her last round, Karen sneaked out of bed. She managed to get the key card. She swipes the key card. The door opened. Now she had to find her child. This was difficult for her since she had not seen her child. She enters the room and starts looking around. Her baby did not seem to be here at all. Then in the corner of her eye, she sees a special unit. When Karen sees her child, she actually starts crying. Then she lets go with a loud scream. Then she heard footsteps in the hallway. The doctor and a couple of nurses came running inside. They thought of the worst, and Karen was in total shock when the nurses sat down next to her. The doctor sighed. This was exactly why they did not want Karen to come close to her child before they could get answers. The child was still alive, but now they needed to explain something to Karen they had no answers for. And Karen demands an explanation now. She wants to know why her baby looks like that. The doctor has no answers for her, so she gets even more upset. The doctor tells Karen that the results of the test will probably come tomorrow, and Karen does not want to hear it and causes a scene. Doctor tells her to go back to bed. The doctor urges Karen to go to bed and get some sleep. That night, Karen can't sleep at all. She only thinks about what she had seen that night. Her baby did not look good at all. The doctor looks very concerned the next day. When stepping inside the room, he is deadly serious. He tells Karen to call Frank to come in. Frank comes in and immediately starts confronting Karen. What have you done? The doctor urges Frank to be quiet and sit down. Then she demands from the doctor that he does a test to see if Frank is the baby's biological father. The doctor agrees. Frank was asked by the doctor to give a DNA sample. Frank was confused, but he agreed. He wanted to get an answer. The doctor told Frank and Karen they had to wait a couple of hours for the test results to come in. Then the doctor came back. The doctor had a closed envelope with him with the DNA results. Karen was asked to come back in. If Frank turned out not to be the father, what could Karen possibly have done? When he opened the envelope, she turned pale. The doctor said that they had found nothing extremely strange. Frank is indeed the father, but they could not find any DNA from Karen. Karen was extremely confused, but the doctor had no answer for this, but told them they would figure it out today. Then Karen acted up again. She suddenly claims their baby is probably swapped, and she looks for her child. Frank thought Karen had gone completely mad, and Karen is still very much in denial. She does not want to keep the baby because she says it isn't hers. Frank and the doctor let her rage on for a couple of moments. Then finally Karen sits on the floor and just gives up. Frank then tries to encourage Karen to care for and keep the baby. The doctor told him the baby is healthy and didn't seem to suffer from something life-threatening. The only thing is that everything took longer than expected, and they will have the results tomorrow. Frank and Karen decide to indeed go home without the baby. They both thought long and hard that night about what they would do. The next day, everything would be revealed. They could hardly wait for so long, but they had to. And Karen and Frank jumped in the car. During the whole drive to the hospital, Karen is very tense. After a drive that feels like hours, they finally arrive. They enter the doctor's office, and the doctor tells them to sit down. The nurse brings the baby in, and he tells them their baby is perfectly healthy. They also have an explanation for why the baby looks so special. Karen is now on the edge of her seat. The baby suffers from a rare skin disease. It is not really a disease, but the doctor explains that the baby will actually slowly get better with time, and the skin color will change. Karen and Frank are relieved. The DNA was explained as well. They made the mistake of not taking Karen's DNA, so they did not have a match.